So based upon the adopted budget that was approved at the June 12th board meeting, we went through and there was the slides that we had showed at that meeting had not reflected a reduction in certain routes. So as the resolution called for was to adjust the budget. So this proposed budget book would instead proposed, it's the adopted now includes that. So the change that was put in, we added 5 headcounts, 5 operator headcounts back into transportation, and reflected that accordingly with the offset being to the GRTC's components of 1 down 1 cent investment in something like that. So that is fully reflected in this budget book. So this will be posted on our website for everybody to use. So that the agenda item here was just to discuss that we updated this. This is different than what we had presented in the public.
Real quick, if we go ahead and do some introductions. So I'm not sure I know everybody, right?
Next to her, GRTC Director of IT.
Agent for executive video.
I'm going to go from the Martin County. Jim Engel, Chester County.
John Zinsborough at GRTC.
Sharon Ebert, City of Richmond.
Terrell Hughes in Rico County.
Mark Smith, Chesterfield.
I'm in the Martin County. That's not what you name? Jacob Sherry, Party. Thank you.
But, okay, so with the modification, the change for adding the 5 headcount in and for revenue. So the baseline 26 adopted budget is 92.5 million. So when you add that grant under the it comes to a total of 107,495. And the offset was into the GRTC appropriation prior year surplus / current interest. So that where the offset went into. You can see down in here, then the headcount table. So I'll scroll to it. On the expense side, the wages and benefits increased to 65.796 million to reflect the additional heads. Obviously impact the operations line item here. Modifying going up 42.465 million. The total headcount charts were updated by 5 collective bargaining unit positions. So this went up 5, and it's reflected in the CBU headcount. And then the transportation pages were updated.
We all have this morning, and they sent them out with the all of them. They're just like.
We will send one with the. Yes, but always one.
Today was
Today.
always the.
So this is on the transportation section. The salary wages were updated, like were updated to tax tax. And that count tables were updated as well. So total that count was.
The only changes from what we saw before was the 5 positions and how they affect throughout the.
Right. The good budget book and then the offset will take it here to see surplus.
Anybody?
11 months ended May 31st, 2025. A lot of similar topics that we've discussed. A lot of the trends that we've discussed in the prior months that are pretty much the thing. So on the revenue side, the 11 months revenues are favorable to budget by $7.432 million on a budget of 83.2 million. So it's favorable about 8.93%. If you go through the components, directly generated revenues favorable just about $11,000 in the budget of $2.6 million. And that's based upon favorable interest income of around $491,000, favorable charter revenue about $38,000, and that's offset by the advertising revenue and RideFinders. RideFinders due to there's one less person there than was actually budgeted for. RideFinders decent the charities employees, so the revenues down. On the local government side, our favorable to budget about $1.24 million on a budget of $37.2 million, and that's is driven by the local portion of grant expenses. This is the PM preventative maintenance aspect, where it's an 80-20% of the eligible PMs, but local sector, so local category. And this offsets the budgetary assumption that was included in the 2025 budget that the Trip Zero Fare grant match of $1,040,000 was funded from GRTC's fund balance. State government funds are unfavorable to budget by $3.84 million and a budget of $34.393. And this is primarily this is through May, so we're expecting a higher volume of consultant invoices that are supporting large projects. Come to June, so we're expecting some of that to disappear. But this is more or less it's a timing issue of how we calendarize the revenue and the expenses versus how the projects are actually pressing in. I think that Frank gave a pretty good synopsis of these projects and where they are and some of the challenges that they're under as it's developed. On the federal fund side, federal funds are favorable in budget by $9.974 million on a budget of $8.979 million. And that's the result of higher than planned use of the ARPA funds for qualifying expenses. Higher assumption of use versus what was contemplated in the budget. To put it in perspective, so some of the items that are the components of the ARPA that were being submitted for was about $4.9 million for Care and Care Plus on We Drive You, 80%. Post the ADA Flex portion of the 5307, about $3 million in bus park purchases. That would normally be a PM 5307 Flex. However, our bus park vendors will not certify the Buy America part, so they're ineligible to use the 5307 PM. So we use the ARPA money. So between the two of those right there, that's about almost $8 million. In addition, there's $765,000 in operator training wages, which we'll show later in the expense side for the vehicle operations. About $150,000 for the Route 1 extension local share match, $350,000 related to the ERP implementation, $432,000 for shop lifts, and about $500,000 in microtransit matches. And the balance are project pieces, $150,000 of a match for two of the Arctics, some IT hardware, and the RTU units that were installed. Also going through that the ARPA is the public safety officers in fiscal 25 because the grant will start eligible July 1 with DRTC, as well as some personal protective equipment, sanitized. So all in all, the majority of the favorable is done as we talked about in the budget point is utilizing the ARPA funds, which have to be spent by September 30th, 1997 in their 10-year model.
Yeah, 1997. You said 1997.
I'm thinking back to this year. So 2027.
Yeah.
So by September 30th of 2027, our 10-year model had contemplated 10.3 million of those being used in the fiscal 26 budget process. So as we discussed, we put them forward. There were some concerns about
viability of unused, unspent ARPA funds with the change in the administration.
On the expense side of the ledger here, for the 11 months ended May 31st, operating expenses are below budget by 3.1 million on a budget of 80 million. So the increase was about 3.76%. Labor is unfavorable to budget slightly by 21,000 on a budget of 53.6 million. And this primarily is being driven by, in the vehicle operations, by the trainee wages. We have incurred $765,000 in trainee wages. That's the actual salaries plus the taxes that we pay through the 11 months, and we've been utilizing the ARPA funds to cover that. In addition, slightly higher than budgeted overtime in operations. We budgeted about 3% assumption, and we're in so those two items are kind of driving the labor. So when you peel back the labor portion, vehicle operations is up fairly 870,000, and that's the majority of that is the 765,000 in the trainee wages. And factor in the unfavorable overtime. My group and Kevin's group are currently, we're having a couple little pilot plays to look at sort of some sources, whether it's scheduling inefficiencies or how we roll out assign people to show ups and stuff like that. So we're looking to crystallize the metrics in that area to help maintain it and monitor over time. In addition, there was also fringe benefits for the vehicle operation for the wrong for budget for payroll about $3,800. And supervisor wages are favorable by 404,000 due to vacancies. In the vehicle maintenance and facility combined, the two of those functions are favorable in labor about $30,000 in the budget of $7 million. And basically a favorable wage variance around $46,000, which is, they're also running that overtime a little bit higher than the budgetary assumption. They're around 7.7%, but as you recall, looking at means, it short some heads, and he's always maintaining his PM maintenance status. So it's he's up that visualization with managing that. So there currently maintenance is about 3 headcounts short below budget, but I think that's yay. General administration is favorable about $819,000, and that's offsetting the unfavorableness and bring it back to and that's mainly cases in vacant positions. For our services line, services are favorable about 5.1 million in the budget of 8.9 million, and this is primarily in the professional technical services, which is about 4.9 million. This is our planning and consulting. This 3.6 million. We're expecting a significant amount of invoices to come in over in the closing period of June. In addition, there's advertising and promotion that is favorable about 1.1 million that contributes to that as well. Contract maintenance services in that category of services is favorable, slightly about $145,000, but 1.3 million, and that's a combination of favorable computer maintenance, so about 300,000, favorable BRT maintenance around 60,000, and offset by about $212,000 in maintenance. Throughout the year, we've had issues with the AC and done some elevator work as well. Other services are favorable about $67,000, and this is due to advertising, different type of advertising expense as well as education and training. Materials and services consumed line is unfavorable about $473,000 with a budget of $8.2 million. And this is due in part to, at one point, we thought it was kind of the timing of the part procurement timing of it versus what budget calendarization was. But we're actually seeing with some of the impacts with the tariff and the pricing and stuff that's not made in the United States. There is some price pressure, and that's kind of one of the reasons why we had increased the parts line in the 2026 proposed and adopted budgets. But we're my group is working on trying to see if buying patterns, but to see if we can forecast better and to try to buy smarter more cost effective.
American state.
And by Americans, yeah, so we can use it, yeah, those are the two. A lot of work is done that is.
Well, it sounds like we might have been buying. Very good.
In addition, one of the things that's also in material and services, it tires and tubes are slightly repair about $50,000. This is associated with the buyout of the prior tire contract. And part of this is offset by our fuel rate variance. We're favorable about $270,000. So I guess we're really pessimistic on the pricing of fuel and think that the budget together. Utilities are slightly favorable to budget by about $42,000 from a budget of about $961,000. Casualties and liabilities cost is unfavorable about $777,000 from a budget of $1.859 million. What we're seeing here is we're seeing an increasing number of incidents that are below the self-insured threshold. So the provision that we looked in November of $707,000 versus what was contemplated by the 625, but we're also seeing additional losses that are incurred at a higher amount of incidences associated with influx of new drivers as well as more than miles. Purchase transportation is unfavorable about $988,000 of the budget of $8.37 million. It's due to higher demand for transportation services. This is one of the items that we adjusted in this one, 56 proposed and adopted budgets. Miscellaneous expense favorable about $216,000 is driven by lower than budgeted travel and meeting expenses. There's a lot of different things in those are probably $30,000. But they're trainings. So that's, so where we are at this point, if we scroll down to the bottom, currently the net operating position, at the end of May, favorable revenues and slightly favorable expenses resulting right now is a $10.9 million surplus. We're going to go through the month June's close. We will probably chip that away because we're going to make our year-end provisions as well as payables are open longer so that we can capture all the liabilities and expenses related to this. But this is kind of, I view this as in line around what we contemplated for the use of market 10-year model for 26 with this 10. From a balance sheet cash flow perspective, the cash account, combined operating and capital cash account is around 10.9 million at the end of. Are there any questions on that? I can just, if I can do it.
So the reason why we're at that the funds that we're going to use next year, this year,
Right.
and that's basically with this money back into fund balance, which will probably have to be used to replace the market funds that we use this year for next year. So this is making sure that it will pick up a little bit.
Maybe we can also do it. Pick up the issue, 400 basis points. And also preserve so that in the event that if the market runs on stand rate. True. Stuff in my own students.
The last meeting, I think did get started, because it looks like y'all were doing it all consent items. And I'm just trying to figure out, like, is that an hour worth of stuff? Cause, I was just trying to get an idea, so I can
It is not.
lay out how long we should spend on one part versus.
The first day agenda, I was to go here, so we can sit right.
Okay. All right. So I was just, when I saw you were still on consent, I was like, do we need to change some of that?
So, yeah, so this, just on the balance sheet, a couple of fallouts, when you look you look at this, the total assets increased about almost $30 million from June 30th, the year ending 24. The big components are, you see there's an increase in the cash balance of around $7 million. And on the operating cash. Also, you also see that receivables, which is unusual, cash went up, but receivables maintained the same. But at the end of May, we had a bunch of the RTICs were still receivables as well, and a significant portion of the federal receivables. So we expect those to turn around. We're still waiting. The smart scale contract just got signed and executed, so those funds will be coming in July as opposed to June. But we can show that cash flow statement. The other items of note on here, you can see the restricted funds. This is a CBTA. This increased from prior year end. This is more or less just due to the fluctuations and disposals of it. All in all, the balance sheet, there's nothing really be concerned about. On the fixed assets, you see fixed assets are up around about $10 million. That's based on the spending for fleet rolling stock replacement as well as other capital projects. The cash flow statement down here, because this is, we have the privilege of having June sort of close. We were at ended the year with about $7 million in operating cash. And you can see we have, July, the first week of July, we moved over to CBTA first quarter coming fixed funds over. But you can see we're expecting some significant capital reimbursement from the federal and the state over the next couple of months. And we, at the request of Richmond, we invoiced Richmond the entire year of their operating contribution. So we have that as that we expect to be in a healthy cash position throughout the first quarter.
Richmond requested we wanted that also
I think we're good with quarterly, but I can ask our financial manager.
I'll ask our financial manager too. But, yeah.
Last slide here is on CBTA. This is the full accounting for the quarter ending June 30th. And Myra MOU, we file our receipts and spending report with CBTA by August 15th deadline. So you can see, the monthly receipts are upticking. Just to put it in perspective, the previous quarter ending March 31st of 25 was 2.8, 3.2, and then 2.6 million. So these are growing here. These are growth in comparison to the quarter ending June 30th. Well, you can see that we've been fortuitous that the interest rates in the LGIP as well as the sweeps, the Treasury sweeps averaged about 415 basis points during the month of June. And the LGIPs were about the short-term LGIP was about 418 basis points. And that's showing a little inversion in the but see there's at the end of June, we had approximately $40 million invested in Treasury sweeps, and we had about $40 million invested in. That's kind of a quick synopsis of the month of May, and then there's any questions.
So during the development committee, that's that year. And that's people's report as how we do it, so we go over detail. But we also wanted to bring it to finance because they have financial implications as well. So, Alvin made a motion to recommend that it was. But I wanted to also give finance an opportunity to go over in detail. If so chooses, so you're clear what's coming. So the first one is the 5 replacement motor coaches. The current motor coaches have been in existence since 2010, 20,000 miles. They've exceeded useful life, so we want to replace them with vehicles with technology and better aviation.
What's the aftermarket? There,
Well, we don't use them on public surplus. And then we'll have to start figuring something very.
they probably don't have any, Petersburg probably. A lot of us, there.
Oh, we haven't given Petersburg.
Okay.
Yeah, well, matter of fact, we have before, yeah, for the first time. They got their.
At one point, I hope it's not true anymore, but at one point, their best fire truck. We had retired 10 years before, and they got it less. That was the best one. So I hope it's not the same, but, I just, we have some back and forth and keep some goodwill to keep the ratio. The way it's supposed to be. If all else fails,
We have provided them with some new, so $900 in this last meeting. They were stacked.
I'm sure, I just hope they can remember that. Good to have the other person.
Yeah, I feel like we have a better relationship with them.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
So that's the one, and the next one is basically 10 air transit vehicles. And these 10, we're gonna go with the jet engine actor. And the reason for that is they have a larger CNG tank on it, so it would require vehicles to run over the MVP contract, we currently have an MVP contract that we use. Put in place in 2023, and MVP stands for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And so now we went back out because we needed a larger scope. And this one includes a 3-year term, 1-year more options, but it expands the maintenance on our HVAC system, electrical, plumbing, what I call labor.
This is,
Yeah. It truly is. So, no. But it also gives us 24/7 emergency response support. Which
That's what I said.
Yeah. So the question was raised during development, it's a good question about funding for this, and it just depends on the project. Some of it really will be operating, but others we will apply for grants to do larger projects. That one. The next one is a motorized gate for the bus entrance, for starting with bus entrance. The current system that we have back there, not really a secure, the arm system that we have here, and they break, buses run into them, they move in right away, so we currently have gates already in existence, but they're manual, so we're looking to motorize these gates.
you know, the gate doesn't look best. They're more expensive.
We know, but the motorized gates will also, give us better security. Because right now, anyone can park their vehicle or
And again, I'm not trying to disturb anybody, but the motorized gates are more secure, especially at night or longer period. But when buses go in and out, there is still enough of a delay that somebody was gonna try to get this.
it's the,
That's-
yeah, it's, yeah.
I don't think that we should be scared of that or that that's, but I don't want somebody to think this is one of arms the gates and all of a sudden people scared.
For like our shots now. We didn't realize that, but right now we have people that walk back and walk first shots. That's a mayor grant as well. That's gonna take a minute. The pavement remediation of the fair trade a lot in the back. They didn't talk about this, I know the other thing that's right here, do something about that one. It's just maintenance for basically our whole parking area, front and back. And that also is a mayor grant. And the last one that we're bringing.
And that one's just for the, engineer.
Yes, yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah, $161,000. Yeah, that's right. And the last one is to upgrade our, server, which is our different. You know, we have to think about that. It's not, yeah,
That's a good match.
it is, yes.
That's, we should definitely take advantage of that. 96.
Most, so, yes, they're all staying, yeah.
And all of that was in it, but that. Yeah, and it's gonna have
Most of those are actually older grants than that, so it's all in.
any questions on? Yes, they're gonna want us to support it. All there. Next steps, priority service and capital contract.
Yes, it's just an update, kind of preparation for, we have currently, so we said September 30th, and the 4th Street date. So we are working on updating our baseline 5-year financial model and it looking at major capital projects to come with it, basic priority ones, the transfer station, north-south TOD, sorry, north-south, BRT, the Western Extension. And then looking at all of our funding sources that we currently have, to paint that picture and, work with you guys and come up with what, funding strategy for the capital operating. So we'll move to development committee next month to go workshop the priorities. And from there, we'll continue to update you guys so have preparation for the retreat.
The retreat is that on site or off site? On site, that's fine. I was gonna say, if you go off site, but you have before, you should probably try to use the facilities of the jurisdiction to pay. Well, it's just.
Yeah, I'll see that.
Exactly. If we want to go off site, I'm sure Chesterfield can help find a location. I have no problem coming to invite the either. I just wanted to make sure if we go off site, that we don't go off site, spend money, we can probably have a facility that we. But.
All right, so reshare. Next week, I'm not sure. Just end it. You should be good now. Should be good. But just end it over here. Get back. This is, I'm not going through all of this. This is more or less it. So as you're aware is, we have a contract with Brown Edwards. This is year 2. At this time of year, they've already gone through and concluded the Old Dominion Transit Employees Disability Retirement Plan. That they sitting with union president to sign the rep letter. That's been concluded in unmodified opinion, but at this point here is now we're at the GRTC and RideFinders financial audits. As in the past, members of the finance committee will would get a letter directly from Brown Edwards. It's not available. So I took the liberty of grabbing some key highlights, and I'm not going through this, but you guys can take a read through this. Basically, they've been engaged to do the financial audits for GRTC and RideFinders, and I've included 2 slides which are basically taken from their 24 Brown Edwards communication with those charged with governance, so that you can read that at your leisure to see what they're actually going to be looking at, the type of procedures that they're performing. I just wanted to kind of share with the.
So this is the contract for the audit.
Yeah, this is the,
There's no way they're going to start an audit, a lot of, they haven't even finished financial.
well, this is for fiscal year 2025.
Yeah, but they haven't started.
Oh, here they are. Just wanted to share the key timeline. So, RideFinders audit fieldwork starts on Monday. So RideFinders is an easier, it's a smaller entity, so we close that first. So the horizon here is starting on July 14th, is they're going to start doing their testing. And then after the conclusion of that, that audit signed off, and then they prepare the Form 990. GRTC's audit field work will commence the 3rd week of August, starting August 25th. So that our August Finance Committee meeting, we'll be bringing the June financial package to review, and that will be finalized. In addition, it's about 2 weeks worth of field work, and then they also have some agreed upon procedures where they do that after they sign off the final trial balance, they look at our NTD filings, reasonableness relative to the audited. So as you can see in front of you. So October 31st is our NTD submission. That's when we have to have Cheryl sign off on it by that point. And basically, Brown Edwards provides a agreed upon opinion on it's not the full audit, but agreed upon. And then we also have submission to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, which is due within 30 days after the audit report date or within 9 months. So it's usually typically in November, we file that after the NTD. And then we've already communicated with Brown Edwards on our November Finance Committee meeting on November 13th. They will be here to discuss the planning of the required communications. And the next slide here.
Are they?
There's some are. So the next page, here's the key audit contacts. Sorry. I'll try to pull this up.
What I'm trying to get at is we're not paying to fly somebody in.
No, they're.
Would you do that?
Yeah.
If they're local, that's great. Come on in. If they're not, let's do it. If you're
Sure,
going
they
to
have-
science.
Yeah, Colonial Heights.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
So the note, I mean, most of this part, so most of you should be familiar. Leslie Roberts has been the engagement partner for a couple of years, and Christy Turner is the manager. She's been on the engagement. Danielle Nicolosi had been the senior manager. She's been promoted to partner. So she's now the primary engagement partner. Leslie, who's had a lot of years with the firm, she is kind of winding her way out. So she's going to take the current partner role. So basically the engagement team's the same. So probably within a week, I'd say within a week, you'll be receiving an email from sent through Janice to you, which will have the 2025 correspondence from Brown Edwards. But don't hear this. If anyone had any questions, feel free to reach out. Here's the contact points, and we can see what they're going to be looking at. If you have any specific items you want to address, then feel free to do that. And that's basically the purpose of what we are. If they're going to intervene, that's a special day as they're starting to build their Monday. That's what they are up to.
anyway, let's have anything they want to add to the agenda. I looked at, this morning, this is gonna take long. Thank you.